last week we were all down on the 3 East teams that we named. This week we're all up on the West teams that we named, which is funny. I just think that kind of speaks to where the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference generally is. I'm up on the Warriors. I really enjoyed their offseason. I think we're going to look at their offseason as a success as long as we adjust the goalposts to something that is realistic and define what the real expectations for this team is. And this has nothing to do with what Warriors fans want. Obviously, they want to win a championship. But I do think even more important than that is letting Steph Curry compete. What was the thing he said at the end of the last season? He says, I just want to compete. Right? And I think you easily say, you can hear that and you say, oh, well, obviously he wants another ring. He wants to win a championship. Of course he does. But more than anything, I think the guy just wants to get it to the second round of the playoffs, have a chance to get to the Western Conference Finals. Like, this is a guy who needs these stakes. Him and Draymond both need high-level stakes to feel something, you know? And these guys just want to feel something. And last year, they obviously weren't able to get there. I think the roster right now, they lose Klay Thompson. That's the big headline. But they added a bunch of interesting guys, right? Some guys that were going to be on the All-NBA Twitter team and some guys who aren't, but some interesting guys like D'Anthony Melton, All-NBA Twitter team member. They add Buddy Hield, not, but a decent player. Kyle Anderson, All-NBA Twitter team member. And they still have all the young guys, and they obviously still have Steph. Steve Kerr has an assortment of options that he can go to with these lineups. We know he's going to experiment with them. There's going to be 20 different starting lineups this year for Steve Kerr, and it's going to be on purpose because he loves to experiment with this stuff. In pencil, I have Steph, Melton, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond Green as my starting 5 for them. Maybe that's not it. Maybe they do start one of their real-ish centers. I don't think it matters all that much as long as they just find ways to get these guys to play. And by the way, they could still make a Lauri Markkanen deal. Like, we can still consider their offseason potentially incomplete here. But the idea that what Mike Dunleavy Jr. set out to do was he was never going to just pick up the thing that Bob Myers dropped when he left the room and just stand and just hold his soda for him. Like, that was never going to be what it was. It was a 2-year process of sort of reimagining and reshaping the roster to be more versatile, to be more flexible in a lot of different ways, payroll, asset-wise, all these things. It started with the Jordan Poole trade from last offseason. Get off that long-term deal. You get Chris Paul. You deal with that for a year. You get off of him. I thought it was the right move to just waive him. They did that. They didn't go after Klay Thompson. They let him walk. They created a ton of flexibility. They did all these sign-and trades and used the exception on Melton and all these things. And I think they have a more complete roster to show for it, and I think they have a roster that can conceivably get into the second round of the playoffs. And if Steph is doing Steph things in the playoffs, maybe we look up and they're in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I don't think that this team has any chance of winning the championship. And I would say that even if they traded for Markkanen. I don't think that's like the needle-moving move that gets them to championship level with Oklahoma City and Denver and all these things. But I don't think that should be the expectation. For Steph Curry's last few years, it should be as many playoff games as possible that we get to watch Steph Curry play in. Everybody wins.
I do like, from that standpoint, the depth, just getting through the regular season more easily.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when you're trying to find young players and develop them, you run the risk of having a guy in your 13th, 14th, 15th spot that just ends up giving you nothing, or in Moody's case, that the coach just doesn't like, or whatever's going on there. But with all these vets now, it's a little bit more, it's easier to just see them having an identity, rolling the ball out, winning games, and especially with the play-in and their checkered luck with that does matter. I think their offseason I'll only feel as good about it as you seem to if they do get the Markkanen thing done.
Yeah.
Especially because they have to at least start thinking about who's going to be on their team after Curry and Draymond are gone also. And I'm not saying that Markkanen would even be on that list of players or that he's good enough to be the best on that team, but he at least gives you if you lose those guys or they retire or whatever, well, then maybe you can trade Markkanen, and then it gives you more of a blueprint for that future rather than like what happens when Kuminga's the best player on a team. And I don't think anyone really feels awesome about that. So I like it for both of those reasons, even if you have to be the team to pay Markkanen and he's not some value, jackpot hit like Utah's gotten. I would even like him on a fair contract for that reason. But I also, this is off topic, but I want next episode your all NBA Twitter first, second, and third teams. Okay.
I will put that together. I would feel better about this offseason if they got Markkanen also, but that was sort of the point, is now they're in position to go make that trade or another trade if it's not Markkanen. They have the stuff to get this done. Would you guys trade Kuminga for Markkanen with like the other things? But would you, the central question of, I guess the reporting around this now is they're offering Moses Moody all the picks and then all the swaps, which by the way, those swaps would be the fakest swaps ever. Like Utah is going to be worse than Golden State. Like have all my swaps. It's fine.
It's a good press release win, Wes. That's what
exactly
you have to.
What it is.
That's what this
And
is. It's a
if
press
Danny
release
Ainge
win.
cares about anything. But
we debated it last week, and I think I would trade Kuminga for Markkanen. I also don't buy that, or we debated it 2 weeks ago. I also don't buy that Danny Ainge actually wants Podziemski more than Kuminga. I think that he's just playing leak games there. So
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Kuminga makes way more sense for Utah than Pods. And that would be the guy that I would want to take a swing on if I'm Utah.
Sure. So I would trade Kuminga.
I'm with you. And then that would sort of fill in that one thing is, okay, well, when Steph isn't scoring, then who is sort of the big question with this team, because it's not Melton, it's not Healed. Maybe it's Pods if everything, like if Joe Lacob saying that this guy's going to be a multi-time All-Star ends up being true, then hey, congrats.
It's been a great week to be Brandon Podziemski, between Danny Ainge leaking that you're the crown jewel of the trade, and then your owner leaking that you're going to be a multi-time All-Star, and then just getting to like beat the shit out of people in summer league because you're too good to be there. It's just been a great week for Pods.
Better PR summer for Pods or Paul Mescal? Gladiator 2.
Chris question.
See, I know movies. Chris,
Paul,
just give me a name.
Pods. The Paul thing is not kicked in yet. It's going to be a better fall for Paul.
Oh, big fall for Paul. Time fall.
One of the other things I like about Markkanen, though, and even if you have to give up Kuminga, almost in place of Kuminga, is one of the things I like about Kuminga on this team is the kind of force and power that he plays with. And Markkanen actually does kind of have that, like he can drive, attack a closeout or cut or, roll to the basket and use
big.
his body and be felt.
He's 7 feet tall.
His secondary rim protection is not terrible. He takes up space on defense. Like he does kind of make you a bigger, more physical team, even though we think of him as kind of a, Euro finesse guy. He's not like, Dario Saric or whatever your bad example would be.
And the other part of this too is as clunky as fitting Kuminga is on the roster now, I think it would be even harder to empower him if you had Markkanen on the roster with Kuminga. If you moved Pods instead, it's okay, we're going to take the ball out of his hands even more now. And it just feels like Kuminga is a guy who needs space. He needs something. He needs a lot of yard, and he needs to be able to explore it. And in Golden State, I never liked the fit in Golden State for him. I like Kuminga as a prospect. Always did. Always hated the fit in Golden State. I don't know that there was a worse team for him to get drafted to than the Warriors. And this is what it looked like, right? Is because they had a system that they needed their players to play in. And Kuminga, he was so raw and still is just so raw that it's like, well, what system do you fit him in? Because we're not even really sure what he's good at an elite NBA level right now. So it's hard to
It's like Cam Whitmore. It's kind of the Cam Whitmore conundrum. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but generally speaking, I really like what Mike Dunleavy Jr. has done, at least now, to position this team for whether it's Markkanen or that next thing. I also like Markkanen a lot, too, as a guy that you can trade for, because he's a guy who fits other stars, whether it's with Steph or Draymond or where they leave and you still have Markkanen. It's just really easy to plug in another guy next to him and it's like, yep, that's going to fit because of the size and the shooting.
I want to go back to one thing you said, Wes, because it's kind of been where I'm at thinking about the Warriors more than anything else, and that is having to move the goalposts. It's real that, like, the best part of Curry's career, like championship window, I am 22, feels like it's probably the last real one.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that is just kind of, considering his legacy, considering his status as one of the best players of his generation of all time. That is true that is where, but part of me does not want to like do that. I don't want to do it for LeBron either. It's like those teams
it's different
are not
for LeBron though. LeBron's chasing Jordan. Every year, every championship ring factors into the equation. Steph Curry, unless he wins 3 more championships between now and him retiring, he's never going to be on that level, right? And so with Steph, I don't think that the expectations for him at the end of his career are the same as LeBron. And I know a lot of people have made that comparison. Well, if we hold the Lakers and LeBron this accountable, and if we're so hard on them for not making big moves, well, why are we not that hard on the Warriors? It's like, because their best player isn't chasing the GOAT status, and these rings don't matter for him anymore.
Yeah, look, I think they just do matter. Like, I think this whole thing is ultimately to win championships. This is what this is about. Steph Curry making the second round of the playoffs and us being like, well, you still plucky, you still can make like.
Would you feel different if Steph,
for me.
if the Warriors and Steph won the championship this year? Would you feel, and then Steph retired? Would you feel any different about Steph's career? No, I wouldn't.
No,
but if LeBron won a championship, that now we're getting to the
I don't know if
equation with him and Jordan.
I don't know if I'd feel different about LeBron, but I'm also just a LeBron homer. Like that's just the reality for me. It's like I already think he's the best player of all time.
Well, then Brendon, would not the LeBron homer then?
The Bradley Beal.
I think I would feel differently about everybody. I mean, when Steph won the fourth one, we started having like top 10 all-time conversations,
That was
best
the
point
one that
guard
changed
ever
everything.
conversations,
Yes.
right? So, but what would another one do? I mean, it would just cement him at the very top of that, probably, right? I mean,
I suppose.
I hear you
just
though.
think
22, the nature of 22, it was kind of like Kobe's second two, right? It's like he did it without Shaq. Curry got another one after the dynasty. Kind of all of that was real.
Right.
I'm the guy. This was our foundation. It won again. So there wouldn't be like a story to this title if for somehow Markkanen just launched them into championship status or they did something else to get there. But I think everybody would benefit. I mean, you know, we're tiptoeing very close to a Kevin Durant legacy conversation, so I'd like to stay away from that. But
that's next week, Brendon.
all these older guys, I still think it matters. I do.
I just also think this is in this sport, in the way we talk about sports, the goal is win a championship. That's the goal. And first, I guarantee you, if we asked Steph Curry, is making the second round like good enough for you, he would tell you no.
I do think that's part of it, though, right?
But
Like
I think
it's because he's quiet, and we think everything is so charmed with the Warriors that I think we do they do avoid the scrutiny a little bit of that type of
they're
like
good at it.
that pressure. Yeah.
Yeah.
he would tell you no. I think in his heart of hearts, I think the guy just wants to feel like he has a chance. Whether or not they do or not, whether or not they ultimately win a championship or even play in another finals again. It's just been every year that wasn't 2022, basically since 2019, has just been a year without a chance. Like, I think just everybody, and that's why, like, this is a personal question. Like, what teams' off seasons are you personally higher or lower than? I'm higher on the Warriors because I think this puts them in a position, or really, frankly, it puts me in a position to watch Steph Curry play playoff games again in a 7-game series, like real playoff games.
Yeah.
And that's all I want. That's all I want from the Warriors off seasons and the Warriors going forward and the rest of Steph Curry's. That's all I personally want.
I will say I think where I ultimately am with this is I'm aligned with Brendon that if they traded for Markkanen tomorrow, I think that I'm there. That's like all the other stuff on the fringes is good. I think Buddy Hield's going to be like dangerous as hell for that team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if they get Markkanen, I that would be there, and you know, because I mean, there's just still some internal stuff there. It's like, is anyone ever going to get Andrew Wiggins to play like competent basketball again? Like,
Well, they might get the every other year Wiggins thing going, which would be a
Yeah.
benefit for them based on last year. So
Yeah, would be good. But I think I sentimentally agree, Wes. But I also just
I'll take that as a win then. I'll take that as an agree.
All right, we've crossed the aisle and made some deals.